Good morning, children. How are you? Well, today we are seeing a new session today, right? The chapter's name is Sexual Reproduction in Flowering Plants. Okay, this is the second chapter in the NCERT textbook. Fine, children. So today we are going to deal about the sexual parts of the flower, right? Now, in the sexual parts of the flower, what are the things do you remember? Right? Just recall that. So, I hope you are drawing the diagram. Just as I'm doing that, you can also draw the diagrams here, children. And we find the other parts also here, right? Okay, right. Now, in this diagram, you are able to see that this is your calyx, right? And this is your corolla. It's composed of the petals, right? And you'll find this part here, which is given by the gray color, these ones. Yes, it is the androecium. And here you find the carpel. Okay, so these are the parts, and this is your pedicel, right? Okay, so your flower you can see. Now, what type of flower is it, children? It is a homothallic, very good, monoecious, and bisexual, because you are seeing both the sexes in the same flower. Just you can recollect from the last class what we were seeing in the last previous chapter. What you just recollect it. So we see that these are the today's our dealing is regarding the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So we are going to talk about the sexual parts of the flower. So one is the androecium, another is the carpel. So these two are said to be the sexual parts of the flower. Both are said to be the sexual parts of the flower. Well, children, in today's session we are going to deal about the androecium part. We are dealing about the androecium part. In today's class, we will be dealing about the androecium part. So, what is this androecium? Androecium is the word that we use in the flowering plants, that is in the angiosperms. The same kind of meaning, but using a different word. What is that word we use in lower form of plants, especially in bryophytes, cridophytes? Okay, there the word is called as antheridium. Okay, there it is called as, this is in the case of this, the same analogy, in the case of lower form of plants, we call it as antheridium. This is in the lower form of plants. In higher form of the plants, we call it as androecium. What is this? Androecium is composed of. Androecium is said to be the male reproductive part. What is this androecium composed of? Androecium is composed of stamens. It's composed of stamens. So, a group of stamens form the androecium. Is it clear, children? Now, what is the stamen? How does the stamen appear like? So the stamen, this is, please draw the diagram, children, right? You find this and you will find structures like this, isn't it? You'll find a structure like this. So you'll find a groove like structure which is bisecting both the things. You find a structure like this. Now, what are the parts of this? So this is the stamen. This is the stamen. Okay, children. Now, what are the parts of the stamen? A long stalk like structure. So this is the stamen here, and this has the two parts here. What are the parts here? That is called the filament, that is the stalk like structure, and this is called the anther. This is called the anther. So the stamen, a group of stamens form the androecium. An androecium is corresponding the male reproductive part of the flower, and the stamen is consisting of two parts. One is a stalk like structure called as filament, the other part is said to be the anther. Okay, children? Now, in this case, now, what is this anther known as? Okay, the previous class, the class 11th, if you recall, the alternation generation of the plants. Do you remember that? In the biological classification, that was a chapter, and later on you can remember that. Lot of then continue with plant kingdom. There you have studied the alternation generation of the plants. What is all the different types you have studied? Haplontic, diplontic, haplodiplantic life cycle. Do you remember that? So there in the plants, you know that, remember that the plants such in the algae or bryophytes or pteridophytes or gymnosperms, there are two phases in the plant body. What are that? Gametophyte and sporophyte. Do you remember that? Gametophyte and sporophyte. So let me write it here, somewhere here, the two phases. One is said to be the gametophyte, another is the sporophyte. Right? So you remember that the gametophyte, the plant body producing the gametes, the plant body producing the spores. So the plant which produces spores here, the form of the plant body, the part of the plant body which is producing the spores, the part of the plant body which is producing the gametes. So based on this two phases, we have that in the class 11 we would have studied in the plant kingdom the haplontic, diplontic and haplodiplantic life cycles. Is it clear? Now just you have to reflect this in today's subject, in today's talk, in today's discussion, in our lecture. You have to just reflect this. Now when I say this anther, what is this anther is corresponding here? It is a part of the plant body. And what is the main plant body here? It is a diplontic form of phase it shows, diplontic life cycle. Okay, angiosperms, gymnosperms, they exhibit a diplontic. So what is the main phase there? Sporophyte. So sporophyte means, so this is the part of the sporophyte. Okay, now the sporophyte will produce a fruiting body. If you see a sporophyte, they are producing a body. What is the name of that? Sporangium. Very good. Sporangia, sporangium. So this sporophyte will in turn produce what is called as sporangia. Okay, sporangia. Sporangia produces sporangia. Okay, a group of sporangium will form a sporangia. Sporangia is the plural form and sporangium is said with the singular. So sporangia is said to be the body. Okay, so that is what produces the spores. So spores are in turn are enclosed in this, and sporangia is bored by the sporophyte. So we are dealing here with some sporophyte here, and that sporophyte is producing some sporangiae. Okay, since we are talking about the male reproductive part, so naturally this will be what? What should you add here? You should add here micro. You have to add micro to this sporangiae. So, my dear, the anther is called a microsporangia. Is it clear? It is called as a microsporangia. So, you know that in ferns, in pteridophytes, I think that from pteridophytes onwards, they show a heterosporous condition. Do you remember that? They show a heterosporous condition. What two types of spores are formed? Before that, all homosporous. If you take in the case of mosses and in the case of lower forms of Rixia and all, they have both the spores which is very similar. But now from pteridophytes onwards, for example in Adiantum, Marsilia, Eucacetum and all these ferns, if you see that, the spores are differentiated into two types. They are microspores and megaspores. So micro, that reflects the male part. So this talks about the male part. So the anther here is nothing but a microsporangium. Right. The anther, my dear, if you are observing this anther here, it is a bilobed structure. Very clearly you see that it is a bilobed structure. So each lobe, so it is a bilobed structure like this. Okay, it is a bilobed structure. And this lobe is having two theca. Two thecas are there. Each lobe has got two theca. That's why it is called dithecus. It is called dithecus, and both this cos is called as bilobed. And each lobe here, no, this is each one is a lobe. Two lobes are there. Each lobe is having two theca, right? So it's with dithecus. So if you are enlarging this diagram, if you are taking a cross section, transverse section of that, when you are observing that, that will be appearing, this lobe structure will be appearing like this. Will be appearing like this, children. See, like a butterfly shape, right? Will be appearing like this. This is how they will be appearing. So you can see that there are how many are there? 4 corners are there. It's called tetra. It is tetra corners. It's having tetra corners, right? So in this each one, how many are 4 lobes are there? It has 4 lobes. The 4 lobes are there. Each lobe, it is corresponding to a microsporangia. So each lobe, it is corresponding sporangium. So this is sporangium. So all together it is called as microsporangia. So each one, it is called as a micro. What you have to add to this? You have to add sporangium. Is it clear? I told you the anther is a microsporangia. Sporangia is said to be a plural word. So it has a group of microsporangium. So how many microsporangium we have? 4. So each lobe we have 2 are there. So that is why it is a 4 are present here, and this is called as microsporangium. And this microsporangium, this each part, if you are further studying this each part of this, each theca, okay, this is what is called theca. If you study this each part of this, that's not a microsporangium. Now if you are trying to study this, that has 4 parts. Is it? What are the 4 parts? The outermost part, children, this is the outermost part like this. So you draw the diagrams very neatly. This is the outermost part. Okay. Then it is followed by the next layer. It is followed by the next layer. It is followed by the next layer. Okay. After this layer, you will be having the next layer. So children, you have to draw the diagrams. Okay, we have the 1, 2, 3. Third layer is there. Inside that, we have the another layer is present. They will be appearing like this. You have the another layer is present. Another layer is present here. Okay, and this has a sometimes it is binucleate also. Okay, so we have the 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, and inside this what you will find? Inside this you will find that inside this is enclosed some cells are present here. It encloses some other group of cells here. Is it clear, children? Now what are the parts? You have to label the parts here. The parts are that the outermost I told you, this is called the epidermis. It is called the epidermis. The next layer, it is called as endothelium. And this is called the middle layer. The innermost part I said you, the fourth one, they are called a tapetum. Okay, children? And you find some group of cells here. These cells are called as sporogenous tissue. This is called as the sporogenous tissue is present here. This is a group of cells. So, inside each one, once again see here, children, this is each microsporangium. So, there are 4 microsporangiae, right? So, sporangium, if you see, they have, if you see that, they have the 4 parts. What are the 4 parts of this? Epidermis, next layer is endothelium, then followed by that, it is a middle layer, and going inside, we will have another type of tissue which is called as tapetum, right? Now, all these things are enclosing a group of cells, cells which has formed a tissue that's called as sporogenous tissue. Is it clear? Now, the tapetum, as you know that, children, they are usually, they try to, it's a nutritive tissue. It is a nutritive tissue. So, it supplies the nutrition for this sporogenous tissue. Is it clear? This tapetum is a nutritive tissue that supplies nutrition to the sporogenous tissue. So, this tapetum, why it is usually binucleated? It is because of the free nuclear mitotic cell divisions. Okay. I think if you remember that the same analogy, but it's a different. You have studied in fungi in last class, in class 11, dikaryophase. You can see that in each cell 2 nuclei will be present. They don't fuse it. Okay, that comes under the parts of the sexual reproduction. Okay, this is the analogy here, but here they are not the gametes. Here they are the cells here, right? So that is due to that property what you will find here. So tapetum has such, if you see, they are the nutritive tissue which is supporting this development of this sporogenous tissue. Okay, so further action is also it is there for this. Now, so today's, when you see here, we are talking about this microsporangium, and inside the microsporangium, so what I said you here, if you remember here, the microsporangium is the one which should develop the spores. So what it is developing here? Microspores. Okay, so this is the sporogenous tissue which is there, that finally it's converted into microspores. Okay, children. So this is the sporangium. Sporangium naturally should produce the microspores. So microspores formation. Microspores formation. So how this microspore formation is occurring, that is what today's our discussion is, nothing but microsporogenesis. It is called microsporogenesis. Is it clear, children? So microsporogenesis is nothing but what is the formation of these microspores inside the sporangium. So we are dealing with a topic called as microsporogenesis. Are you able to understand? Now, how this microgenesis will occur? in the anther. Now, first thing, please remember here. I'm telling that we are dealing with the sporogenous tissue. The sporogenous tissue, my dear, where is sporogenous tissue is there? They undergo a lot of mitotic cell divisions. And they will form many cells they will be forming. And those cells which they give rise to, many cells they will form. They will form many cells they will develop. They develop many cells. This is a sporogenous tissue. Okay, this is the sporogenous tissue here. Sporogenous tissue, and this is undergoing mitotic cell divisions and developed by many cells. So this is called as pollen mother cell. This is called as pollen mother cell. Is it clear, children? Now, this pollen mother cell, one of all will proceed. I am taking from the one. Now, we have to see the ploidy. So, ploidy of this is 2n. And its ploidy is also 2n. Now they will be proceeding for the, what here, you have to remember this pollen mother cell, they will be proceeding for the reductional division. Reductional cell division. What is this otherwise known as? Meiosis. You know that? It is called as meiosis. Okay, then proceed for meiosis 1 as well as 2. At the end of the 2, you remember, again from the last class 11th, if you remember that, cell division topic is there. So, meiosis will give rise to how many cells at the end of the meiosis? 4 cells it will form. So, there is a formation of the 4 cells here. So, that you can represent in this manner. Okay, you have one cell here, second cell, third, and 4 cells. 4 cells are formed here. What is the name of these 4 cells that is formed here? The 4 cells that is formed here, it is what is called as pollen tetrad. That is called as pollen tetrad. So naturally, the ploidy will become what? The ploidy will become N, because it became haploid. The diploid will become haploid because of this meiosis. Now, this pollen tetrad, from here you can, I am taking one of the cell. This, if I am drawing like this will be appearing like this, very nicely, beautifully it will appearing, very ornamentation will be there, children. And we have outermost part is also well decorated here. It has a lot of a honey-like structures it has. Is it, children? And it has a nucleus here. Okay, so we have to remember spore. So spore is formed. So what is that spore here? This is what. So this is the spore is being formed. This is the microspore. So children, the microspore is otherwise called as the pollen grain. Very good. It is called as the pollen grain. Are you remembering here? Are you getting the point here? So the microspore is otherwise called as the pollen grain. So we are forming the pollen grains. How is the process of the pollen grains are formed? Okay, so you have to just compare the subject with your previous learning experiences. How this gametophyte is doing, what the sporophyte is doing, what the sporophyte is consisting of. Sporophyte produces sporangia. A group of sporangium will form the sporangiae. Each sporangium will produce some bodies due to the cell division. They are called as the spores. So the spore here, so since we are talking about the male reproductive part in today's session, so that is called as a microsporangium. So microsporangiae, and the spores that is developed here is said by microspore. So microspore in our study, since it is a flowering plants, so it is also called as, it's otherwise called as pollen grain. Is it clear? Now this pollen grain, what will undergo? It has two parts here, children. Are you able to see the two parts here? Very hard horny layer it is there. This is called exine. And the innermost layer, it is called as intine. Exine. It's very ornamentation, very hard layer that protects the pollen grains for many years. It doesn't get destroyed. It is because this exine, it consisting of a very important chemical substance called as sporopollenin. Sporopollenin. So sporopollenin is the chemical substance that is present in the exine, and exine is at the outermost part of the pollen grain. It's otherwise called as microspore, and the intine is the innermost part. Is it clear, children? So it protects it from strong acids and alkali treatment. I think you remember the strongest alkali, sodium hydroxide. Strongest acid is sulfuric acid. If you treat even the high temperatures also, everything it can resist. The property is because how they are able to resist, it's because due to the presence of this chemical. What is the, children? Sporopollenin. Where it is present? It's present in the exine. Okay. Now this microspore now will go for the next. I can draw it here. It proceeds for the mitosis division. It goes for the first mitosis division. Let us proceed for the first mitosis division, children. So what we try to see here is, you draw the diagram here. Okay, this is your pollen grain, and you have the ornamentation on the outer part. What is this part, children? By now you should remember that's a exine. Very good. That's called as exine. Right. Now this they will undergo a unequal division. It's an unequal division. So first mitosis, but this is an unequal division. It's an unequal division. So a larger part compartment is formed and the smaller compartment is formed. So in this, you will find the presence of course you can draw the nucleus here, right? So two cells are formed. So the bigger cell, this is called as the vegetative cell. It is called the vegetative cell. And the smaller compartment, what do you find? This is called the generative cell. Generative cell. And children, this is what is representing a two-celled stage. A two-celled stage of the microspore. So usually in the anther, this is what is formed before it goes for pollination. Do you remember? Pollination, you know that. What is a pollination? Okay, that all we discussed in the further sessions which is going to come. Now, for that, this is what usually is formed in many of the flowering plants. On the stigma, in 70% of cases, when the pollen grain at the two-cell stage, when it falls on the stigma, there they proceed for the next division. They go for the next division. Okay, they proceed for the next division. There you will find the same thing is there. Okay, children. Then draw the ornamentation very neatly. Draw the ornamentation, and has represented the unequal cells are there. What is the bigger cells is called as vegetative cell. Very good. That is the vegetative cell. This is the vegetative cells. Very good. And this is your generative cell. In the generative cell, children, this nucleus will divide into, they will undergo the second mitotic divisions. But this is free nuclear division. It is a free nuclear division. They will undergo two nuclei. This nuclei will split into form of two nuclei, but there is no cytokinesis. Okay. Now, what is the name that you assign for this? So, of course, this is the generative cell, and these two things that is formed, is nothing but the male gametes. They are the male gametes. Is it clear? So this stage is said to be the three-celled form. But usually this is formed on the stigma, most of the flowering plants, right? Usually at this two-cell stage only the pollen grains has been shed on the stigma of the flower. Okay, whether it's the monoecious or the dioecious conditions. So children, today's discussion, if you are seeing here, if you are seeing that, we were just recap what we today studied. So we took a flower, it is a monoecious, good, bisexual. It has two parts, that is namely the reproductive parts of the flower and the androecium and carpel. They are called the sexual parts of the flower. In today's class, we are discussing regarding the androecium. Androecium is the word that we use in flowering plants. In the lower forms, the word is called antheridium. Androecium, it is consisting of a group of stamens, very good. And each stamen is represented here like this. It has two parts, a filament and the anther. Now the anther is otherwise called as microsporangia, sporangia, microsporangia. If you try to see the anther here, it's a bilobed structure. Each lobe has got two theca. So that's why it's called dithecous anther. And you can see that if you take a transverse section of this anther, this is a transverse section of the anther, it is what you can see a four-cornered structure we will find. Okay. Now this each one you can see that each theca, that is called the microsporangium. And children, microsporangium will produce what? Microspores. Okay. So how these microspores are developed? From where? From the sporogenous tissue. Okay. So if you take each part of this microsporangium that has got enclosed or protected, right? It has the four layers here. The outermost layer is what, children? Epidermis. Next is endothecium, followed by the middle layer. Then we have the tapetum. Tapetum is nothing but a nutritive tissue which is required for the sporogenous tissue to form these stages, the whole process. So the tapetum is the tissue which is actually supporting the microsporogenesis. Micro, say the word male, spore, genesis, so formation of microspores. That's nothing but formation of the pollen grains. So you can see here we have the sporogenous tissue, children. So it is said to be the 2N diploid. They will undergo a lot of mitotic divisions. They form a pollen mother cell. From one pollen mother cell just taken, they undergo the first reductional division. First meiosis 1 and 2. They form 4 cells. They have a pollen tetrad. Diploid will become haploid. So all these are haploid only. Okay, so pollen grain is said to be a haploid cell. Do you remember? It is the haploid body. Now, from each one I am taking here, this is a pollen grain or microspore. That is called two walls here. The outermost layer is said to be the hexane. The hexane is very hard because it has a chemical substance called sporopollenin. That's why it protects this microspore from very strong acids and alkali even for high temperature also. Now, they are proceeding for the first mitosis, which is very unequal. So, you have two cells here. So, bigger cell is called vegetative cell. The smaller cell is called generative cell. This is called two-cell stage. They further go for the second mitosis division, which is a free nuclear. We can see in the generative cell there is a formation of two nuclei is formed. They function of the male gametes. So, the spore is nothing but it is the first cell giving rise to what? The second body gametophyte. Are you able to understand? So, the spore is the body structure which give rise to the gametophyte. The gametophyte will develop, and what the gametophyte will produce? Gametes. Isn't it? Are you able to understand? So this is what is said to be the features that we are going to see, that we have seen in the androecium. That nothing but stamen. And in the stamen, the anther, what are the various events that is occurring is today's session, children. So today's session is regarding, we have dealt about the microsporogenesis. So please post your comments, any queries and doubts, please pass into my WhatsApp or in the comment section. Okay, children, have a nice day. Bye.